Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there was actually Bob. That's okay. We're great. We have is very important.
Right here. Nice to see you, Mark. Your name.
Hi, Dr. Wilson. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Hey, how are you? Nice to see you.
You're in an especially good mood today.
Pen is in it.
That's okay.
Hi.
Flip flop. How long?
Don't worry.
Let me see how long the battery I have. I'm probably okay. I got a full battery. I should be
All
okay.
right, well, we'll flip flop around as
I'm
we
all right
need it.
for an hour and 19 minutes. Go.
Anita,
Mark.
chop it up.
Oh, you don't already have stuff to see, huh? Calling this evening's meeting to order. Can we get a roll call? Mr. Calavita?
Mr. Capadia.
Here.
Dr. Lilliston.
Here.
Mr. Peters.
Present.
Dr. Resnick.
Here.
Mr. Slotman. Here. Ms. Tracy, Ms. Williams-Galliano.
Present.
Dr. Wilson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of the Act, the Hopewell Valley Regional Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof communicated to the Hopewell Valley News and the Times on January 4th, 2024. This meeting notice was also sent to Comcast Cable and Verizon Fios. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. The meeting is being recorded for the purposes of board review, future reference, preparation of the minutes, and viewing on YouTube, Bulldog TV, and the school district website, www.hvrsd.org. Members of the public who intend to participate in public comment, we ask that you sign in prior to speaking at the podium. This will assist us with our record keeping. Please join me in a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we get started, I just wanted to give board members and people at the table that the microphones are new and they don't lock off. So they're hot all the time. If you want to mute, you can mute it. Now I'm talking. No, they won't lock in place. So you know.
The best equipment.
Thank you.
New equipment, thank you.
But we can hear us now. That's
That's the most
important.
important thing.
Yes.
Does this count for us being like more transparent as a board?
Yes. Well, as loud as my mouth is, they can hear me.
Still speak up. Okay, I need a first and a second to approve the minutes for the November 18th meeting.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Seeing none, the minutes are passed. Hello, our student representative. We are looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us today.
As we enter December, our students have been participating and actively engaged with a wide range of winter sports such as boys and girls basketball, boys ice hockey, winter track, boys and girls swim, winter cheer, and wrestling. In the arts, our HVCHS art programs have been preparing for several upcoming performances these past weeks. Rehearsals for the winter musical Alice by Heart have begun, and we're excited to see the production take place. The HV Orchestra recently had a successful concert last week, and the band program is expected to have their winter concert tomorrow at the PAC. Additionally, the HV Choir have also been preparing for their concert in January, and we look forward to celebrating their musical accomplishments. This past month, we also had the induction of the new members of the Math Honor Society, Mu Alpha Theta, recognizing students for their academic excellence in math. Additionally, FBLA and Unified Club had their annual gingerbread house building contest, and finally, the Student Council had kicked off their annual Winter Spirit Week today, which includes various themed days leading up to the pep rally on Friday. We are proud of the wide range of activities our students are involved in this winter season, and we look forward to their continued success in the new year. Thank you.
you, Erin. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, well, I just want to acknowledge you going into this season of probably test taking and final papers before winter break. So we wish you the best of luck, and we absolutely invite you to stay for the meeting. With that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the superintendent's report.
I'm going to wait until Mr. Calavita presents. I'm going to share my report with him if you'd like to say a few words before.
I am good for now. We'll move on.
Right.
Oh, yes, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was in my notes in my other notebook. So, sorry for that. I do have a couple of notes, and we are celebrating the year of the end of year, but we are also saying goodbye to a dear colleague. Sarah Tracy was voted in. She was not able to join us this evening, but she was voted to unanimously by this board to be taking on the filled role of what was it, 4 months for Miss Lou and Dr. Lou, and we are grateful for her commitment. And in her stead, she chose not to run for the open seat, but we're happy to welcome Amanda Stelliano. Thank you. I did not want to mess that up. But we are so happy to have you, and thank you for your amazing work to get your name out. I know that's a challenge, but we're looking forward to getting to know you and kicking off 2025. So welcome. So those were my 2 notes. Thank you, Dr. Trees, for reminding me, and we'll move on.
Okay, so I just wanted to take the time before we got to the end of this calendar year and before we get deep into the budget process to kind of give an overview of where we are right now, some of the challenges that we're facing, and items that we're going to be tackling in earnest in January. Dr. Treese and I and the rest of her cabinet will be sharing some of our ideas and the thoughts that we've been going through the last several weeks. We are still very, very early in the process, and we'll get into that as we go.
Just to piggyback on what Mr. Calavita is sharing, we know that this is early in the conversation, but we are already looking at some of the challenges we face. It's going to be worse than what we thought. Bob will share a little bit of the conversation he's had at the executive superintendent level with representation from the New Jersey Department of Ed. It's looking bleak for a lot of us school districts. I know that many of you have read the article that I published, the brief article in the Hopewell Express. I will be publishing another article and sending out in January that will give a little bit more, it'll recap what I talked about and how schools have been underfunded for quite some time. And now it's really, really getting difficult for us to maneuver around the lack of funding we're receiving from the state. So again, what drives all of our decision making when we talk about school budget is the priorities of the school district, our community, and the needs of our students, and our mission statement, which we rewrote very recently with the support of students, faculty, and parents, and what you all wanted to see for your students. This drives how we make decisions for the students as best we can. If you go to the next slide. Yep. Also, recently we were able to work together as a community and develop a strategic plan. These were the 5 areas of that the community said were important. We're really going to focus on the finance and facility portion of that, but I'll give you a little progress report on some of the other goals that we set. But today's focus is really going to be on the finance and facilities goal. So let me start with a quick update. The first one was student autonomy. I'm going to back up so I can see this. It was very important for the community that we brought back STEAM for our students, or STEM experiences, experiential learning for our students, project-based learning, problem solving. So we were able to bring back our STEM facilitators at the elementary school. Each one has a certified STEM teacher, and the curriculum that we're developing touches upon all of the things that the community has asked. We talk about the sacrifice zones, the sustainability. They're learning about professions within the industry. They're problem solving, and they're coming up with their own experiments. So all of the things that the parents have asked us to do, the STEM facilitators are now engaged. K to 5 students are consistently experiencing this exploratory, which is also a challenge we had before. And they're able to, with consistency, experience that across school. Technology literacy, the education program committee just had a proposal for a new course, but we have been doing a lot of work on examining AI and what does that mean in schools, working on developing a policy. It is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And how do we teach children to use it properly, when it's appropriate to use it, when not? And also, you still need to learn how to write. But AI does have its purposes too, right? You know, it can be a time saver. And someone gave me a quote just recently I thought was very interesting. It was the people that don't know how to use AI are going to be the ones that are least productive in the workforce, because it is a time saver if you're using it correctly. And then finally, the high school has done their second iteration of student-led conferences, students talking about and taking the lead in their reporting out on their learning was something that the committee was very concerned about, the ones that were looking at student autonomy. The high school is now evolving that at the high school. This is the second time they've had a back-to-school night where the students actually share their progress. So we're looking at spreading that to the other schools. Communication. One of the things that came out with our referendum was people feeling like there's too much information, but they're not sure where to look. One of the things that I'll be doing in January is I'll be visiting each one of the PTOs to discuss the school's facility needs again in each school. I have dates for January that I will be publishing to the community and to the parents. In addition to that, our board meetings, for those of you who don't have children in school, we want you to be able to also have that same knowledge. We are going to be moving the board meetings around the building, starting with Bear Tavern first, so that we can open with a tour of the building and we can show you some of the challenges we're talking about. And then the board meeting will start directly after those tours. So we're working on figuring out the technology, how we're going to make that happen, but I'm confident that we can. We'll figure it out. So that's how we're going to make sure that we're doing that. In addition, we've already met with the mayor of Pennington Borough, who shared that they expect development to be coming online in the next 2 weeks. Hopewell Borough, thank you. Hopewell Borough, who's explained some of the development that they have planned in the next 2 and 3 years. And we are following up with the meeting with all of the mayors. I've made contact with the liaison from Hopewell Township and Pennington Borough. We need to get them all together and meet again to start talking about their contributions to the incoming students that we have in the future. Health and wellness. We're working very hard with the Digital Wellness Committee. We've gotten cohorts of parents at the elementary school and the middle school who are holding off on buying cell phones for their children and are teaming up to make sure that they have tech-free play dates in their homes. So the support coming from the community has been amazing. Timberlane Middle School has fortified their off and away protocols, which has always been the case. I'm sure our student representative and new board member remember that it was always the case at the middle school. It is even more stringent than it used to be. Kids put their phones in their lockers, and now they will be locking their phone in a pouch and putting it in their locker moving forward. So we've procured the funds for that through grants money, and Mr. Trumbull has done a very good job with communicating with his parents. He's had lots of forums and discussion and tech-free nights. He did the community read of Anxious Generation, but he also did that study with his own school. So the high school will be right behind the middle school with exploring ways to have less technology in the classroom in terms of that cell phone. And also, we're trying to push folks to not always be on these Chromebooks as well. So I'm very excited about the progress we're making with that. Heidi Kami is to be celebrated for having another room full of people just a week ago training for teen mental health first aid in this room. And she has another session scheduled here after the winter break. Help Squad, thank you, Ms. Ham, who made a contact and connected us with this wonderful resource. Help Squad is a training for teenagers, sort of a mental health first aid as ambassadors about mental health. And that they will be trained in how do they, one, teach their classmates about how to stay mentally healthy, but also how do you get someone help that needs it. Paula, do you want to share a little bit more about that before I go any further?
I was going to talk about it in my SEL committee, but I can talk now if you prefer.
Okay. But yeah, why don't you
Yeah. So, again, Miss Ham, thank you. She introduced us this summer to a really special mother who started a nonprofit to provide awareness and resources for families in need, but also has connected many school districts around the state to this suicide prevention program that has proven to be very effective across the country. There's over 1,000 schools that are implementing this. So after that meeting, I passed it to Corey Rudd, our new supervisor of counseling, and Dr. Chris Felderman, who's our SAC counselor. They continue to vet the program, and also with the help and introductions from Ms. Ham in that meeting this summer, we were also able to obtain funding through the Cully Foundation, so huge shout out to them. And they will be funding this program that we have already started to put the pieces in place to implement across the district.
And then finally, we're also able to procure some grant monies to support Tier 2 of Character Strong, which you will share during your SEL committee update. I don't want to take all your thunder there. Under diversity, equity, and inclusion, we've spent, Dr. Plitzis couldn't be here tonight. She's not feeling well. She spent a lot of time planning and implementing trainings for our staff on how do you differentiate for students of all learning abilities. She has implemented a writing initiative program to help our students catch up with writing because we know that they can do a lot better in that category. And so that's a component that was missing from reading and writing workshop, that specific prescriptive writing instruction. And Mr. Nardo and one of our reading specialists helped to find this program, and our staff is being trained. They're also having conversations within their professional learning communities on data-driven instruction. Now that we have all this rich data that's coming back from our internal assessments, in addition to the high-stakes testing that we take with the state, we're really looking to get those scores up based on where our students are right now, what skills they're missing, what gaps we're finding. Mr. Umstead is working very hard with the new teacher that we have on assignment now that goes around to all 4 elementary schools and expanding the net of our gifted and talented to make sure that we're identifying more students that we might be missing by just using the one assessment of the COGAT, which has been happening for years. We know that there's some biases with that test. So now she's able to go in and push it into lessons. This is something that used to happen before COVID. And she goes in and really looks for those particular the curiosity and the thinking around the student that is gifted that may not always translate into straight A's or a good student, right? So we're really looking at, excited about her expanding, widening the net to grab more students, and her expanding the opportunities for students. She's a really strong teacher, and she's also a trained a learning specialist. So she knows how to find those twice exceptional students and how to reach them. And then finally, we have identified the new subject under the Witness Stones Project. If you're not familiar, our 8th grade students research an enslaved African that would have walked the streets of Hopewell at one point. They do projects where they look at secondary and primary sources. They try to piece that person's history back together. And then at the end, they have a culminating presentation and celebration of their work. They present essays, artwork, poems, music, and they install a tripping stone of that person in that space. If we can invite a surviving descendant of that person, we do. The first 2 people that they researched, we were able to invite those descendants, very elderly people. Some of them are still with us. I don't know that this one we'll find. I don't think we can find somebody descended from this person. But it should be very interesting, and of course we'll invite folks, and we'll have the video available to parents to view if they can't make the actual capstone. But we also keep the video online so people can watch it. If you want to see the old presentations, they are available on our website under Witness Stones. Then finally, this was not a goal that was part of the strategic planning, but we had a separate, very lengthy strategic plan that came out of the work of the Green Sustainability Ad Hoc Committee of the board. The committee is now going around with pieces of that strategic plan to the committees of the board that those apply to. So they've met with EdCom about some of the suggestions that they came up with for them. They've met with Finance and Facility going to meet with the policy committee and community relations very soon. They are researching and providing us with plenty of grant opportunities. As we dig into them, we're not eligible for a lot of them, but we're still trying. We're still digging and looking. And they're also coordinating the green teams in each one of the schools, which is one of the things that we were asked to do, to determine how we're going to continue to maintain these gardens. And I'm hoping that ECO PTO can support us in that as well, and I've been in meetings with them. So now we're getting to the one that we're really going to talk about tonight, which is the finance and facilities goals that came out of strategic planning. The things that we were asked to do, some of the things we were asked to do, to identify the top 3 drivers and to investigate cost-saving alternatives. So Bob, as we and I and my team, as we dig into our budget, and this is something that we've presented over the years, a majority, over 80% of our budget is tied up in the staffing and the benefits. So that's health costs and salaries is where most of our budget is spent. And then another big driver that's really affecting us adversely this year is out-of-district placements. I'm saying this because with the new students that are coming in, we budget ahead, right? We know that we have a plan for our students that are here that are going out. We also put aside some money for those unexpected, tuition. Because things come up. There may be a student that wasn't on our radar who's in crisis that needs something, and we have that money saved. Right now, we have such a number of students coming in the district that have IEPs, private nurses, paraprofessionals already in place when they come to us that we have to honor that we did not have, we did not budget for. Did you want to share a couple of things?
Yeah. So since July 1st of this year, we have had 6 students move into our district who came to us already placed in out-of-district placements, meaning that their challenges were so that they benefited most from a very specialized placement. And they're very costly. But that is what the kids need, and they were already in these placements. And per our New Jersey code, we honor the IEPs that come to us within the state. So if it's a school within New Jersey, we honor it and we do a 30-day review. And I just want to also reiterate that I also met with all of these families, met the students, and visited the schools. And they do need to be in these placements right now. We do not have programs that can support the immense needs that many of these students require.
And then some of these may also be tuition to charter schools, which they're entitled to continue to attend, and that now becomes something that comes from us, that losing funding.
Paulette, so on that one, does the state provide any support for that? Because I know sometimes we can get state money to help us offset the cost.
So
So I made several calls.
Yes.
Because this is a first for me to have that many move-ins. And we also have, we do have a handful of students each year who are already with us that, we're watching, we're tracking data and seeing what their needs are, and some of them may do need a higher level. I did call the state, say, hey, this happened, what do we do in this situation? And there was no feedback. They weren't sure.
And I've also met with the executive superintendent. Bob has also met with the BA at the executive superintendent's office. They will sit down with us and talk about it. They're going to look and see where we can make cuts. we can do that, right? So that's where we are.
I don't think we need their help to help us make cuts.
No.
That's not where we need
Remember,
their help.
every year we've talked about the true rainy day surplus fund that we have, the 2%. In my career here in 20 plus years, I've never dipped into surplus. We may have to.
Yes.
We may have to take money out of our rainy day fund to cover this. Now, you can't do that until you can justify that you've taken every bit of your budget out to cover those costs. And it's a lengthy process. So the short of it is, we'll start stripping money from other parts of the budget to cover those shortfalls first. Yep.
Oh yes, absolutely. But we'll continue to have, make known our challenges, and we're not the only one facing this, right? All of I just had my roundtable this Friday. We're all saying the same thing. We're all having this similar crisis, and right now the NJDOE is going to be holding hearings where they're allowing us to come and speak about our concerns again. So we're all going to avail ourselves of those and do what we can. But this is a crisis we're all facing, and we're going to continue to do what's best for kids. But it's getting increasingly tough. All right. And again, we talked about the green building options. We're exploring them as of late. We haven't determined one that apply to us, but there is one I think Vicky's exploring. Dr. Flitz is right now, and we're prioritizing. They also said prioritizing the district-wide initiative for the gardens. I already talked about that. The green teams have met, and they're looking at coordinating efforts to maintain our outdoor spaces. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so again, we're into our budget calendar. We've had 2 presentations about C&I and special ed already. This will be more of a general discussion to kind of get us going on the track of where we're going to be. The ultimate goal is for a tentative budget adoption on March 17th and a final budget submission on April 28th. So that's where we're going to be working over the next 4 to 5 months to get there with a lot of discussion. There's some to be determined dates on there. As we get information from the state, we may need to meet as a board. We'll probably need to meet as a board anyway to discuss the cuts that will be proposed sometime in January, February. Okay. Again, our priorities really haven't changed. This is a slide that we've used for the last several years, but this is what we hope to accomplish, reflecting our mission statement, our strategic plan, maintaining and continuing all of our services that we currently have. I'm not going to go through it. You've all seen it before, but meeting all the obligations and to our students, staff, community that we've done for years. Okay.
So I do want to point out the second bullet. And I think we've used this slide pretty frequently, but I think number 2 is an area that we are scouring, right? Is maintaining all existing programs even feasible? And is it being responsible for how we need to manage our budget? So I just want to call that out as actually a modification of how we are looking at the budget given our challenges.
Mm-hmm.
We just may not be able to, or will not be able to.
We won't be able to. We just have to be. We have to be real about that. We're not going to be able to. As I've said in the past, we're hoping that natural attrition would take care of some of it, but we can't continue doing what we're doing. When I say that, when you ask the question, what will the state do? One, we are well over adequacy according to what the New Jersey Department of Ed says a district needs to do. But they also don't feel like everyone needs a librarian, everyone needs a nurse in every building. They don't. You see what I'm saying? They certainly don't think we need STEM facilitators. They don't think that we need the class size we have. So what they think is adequate is not what this district has come to expect. Right.
Yeah, so I mean, I think technically that bullet should come out because I think more importantly is the academic rigor, reflecting the values and all of those things that would determine any of the changes in bullet.
Well, I think we should say maintain as many existing programs as possible.
That was more in a goal, more of
I
a
was
goal. If we can't, but this is what we would try to do within parameters.
Yeah, I was gonna let Bob go through this, but since we interrupted, I second that. I think that should say something like try or maintain as many, but also, if you look further down, provide class sizes in accordance with Board of Education policies, right? Again, that's another variable that we have to have in consideration as we look at things. It would be irresponsible to not use that as a variable, and it may very well be that we'll wind up maintaining class sizes as per current policies, but I think that's something we need to be considering.
Sorry, if we just does this?
It's on.
Okay, you can hear me. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would just say if as Bob just said, this is the goal. I mean, it certainly should be that we maintain. I understand we might not, so I don't know. We're arguing over a slide here, and I appreciate that. But I mean, my goal would certainly be to maintain all. But if we can, obviously we can't. But that should be where we start.
No, it's not an argument. It's a clarification because this is a slide we've used for
Many
a
times.
while. So there is an adjustment we need to acknowledge. And also, I would say that we are not maintaining, not that we ever did. I don't want to imply we maintain blindly, but I think we are considering other factors in terms of what is existing that we should, right? Like you don't, we've always said we try to get as many AP classes as we can, as many extracurriculars as we can, the more the better. And now we're assessing the sustainability of that. So just saying maintaining or trying to maintain, I don't think has the finer tuned accuracy that I would like us to be conveying to the public. That's all. It's not an argument. It's just a simple conveying of what's actually going on, so that there is a vote of confidence that we're not just going along with whatever's out there because that's what we've always done.
Mark, you look like you wanted to say something.
I'm good. We
good
talked
for
a
now?
lot about this slide. Let's go to the
Right. All right. Yes, we gotta- All right. So some of the variables that I'm looking at right now that are causing some consternation, we are still stuck at a 2% levy cap. Some of the things that Dr. Trees talked about that's going on with testimony to the DOE is a lift on that cap, but we haven't heard anything yet. There's a health benefit waiver that we used last year, and I'm looking to hopefully exercise that waiver this year. Remember, the state has increased for January 1st an aggregate increase of 14%. So that's going to help us because they have estimated an increase that high. So we should be able to get something back from that waiver. On the same lines, there appears to be push that the DOE may offer additional waivers for transportation, some additional special education waivers that used to exist that have been removed. So we're crossing our fingers that some of these areas that have hit incredible escalation due to inflation, such as transportation, may find some relief this year. We don't know anything yet. Okay, state aid, what I did here, and Dr. Treese heard, and if you were at the New Jersey School Board's conference this year, the Commissioner of Education said it, prepare for a reduction. We did get 7 years of increases. They have brought us to the level of what they consider fully funded based upon the formula. But now the COVID money has been exhausted and they don't know what revenues they are going to have for 25-26. At this point, we are hoping for flat state aid. I'm building the budget based upon flat state aid, but we are also going to consider what 5, 10, 15% reduction means to us. 15% reduction in state aid is about $1 million. Okay. Last year, just for your notice, we got an additional $500,000 last year. So it's not a whole lot of money, but every bit counts. You know, $500,000 plus last year was very important. Something else we're trying to work on, other locally generated revenue. We do bring in some tuition money. It's not guaranteed each year. Last year, we did have some folks who were here last year, but pulled out this year. We had some new folks come in this year. So we don't know that until it actually happens. Facility rentals have gone up somewhat this year, but we're maintaining local only. We've stopped looking for outside Hopewell Valley rentals because for no better reason than they don't treat our facilities with respect, and it's not worth the money it takes to fix them after they're gone. So there is some revenue there. We are talking in earnest right now about reinstituting the athletic and co-curricular fee. We don't know what that is yet. We'll be discussing that in finance, facilities, and with the board as a whole to what that fee may be. And then transportation fees, we'll get more into that as we move forward. And the use of
Bob,
surplus.
If we're interrupting you, or since we're interrupting you on the slide, this is kind of like a laundry list, but I think to me one of the important things for people to also realize that first bullet, that's almost 90% of, that's what, high 80%
Yes, it's
of our
90%
revenues,
max. Yep.
right? We are a district that is almost 90% funded by the tax levy. So at the end of the day, you know, yes, state aid impacts us, and it's a little bit here, a little bit there, but we are severely limited in our budget and what we can do by that 2% tax. Right.
Yep.
When inflation has been well above that for
Wow.
2 years now.
We'll get more into that as we
Okay.
get through. We'll touch
Okay.
on all these things more. The last thing, and not necessarily least, that least surplus, I almost want to shift higher in the bracket. We are dangerously utilizing surplus. There's $4 million worth of surplus in our budget now. What that means is I need to pull $4 million from this year's budget and move it to next year. And we just talked about different things that are driving monies unplanned from this year's budget. Will I be able to generate the same amount of surplus for next year? I don't know. Not yet. It's too early to do that. Okay. We'll go to the expenditure side. What's driving it? Okay, we talked about inflation, and everything that we see right now is driven by inflation, from supplies to services to energy. We've been told to expect a greater than normal increase in utility costs this year due to an electric grid overhaul that covers the entire Middle Atlantic plain. So I don't know what that means yet, but this major grid, this grid that runs from Maryland up through our area, is undergoing an overhaul, and we're expecting the cost to be passed on to us.
That's one of the benefits of AI. So we're, to run all the systems.
C&I, curriculum instruction, is what we do. Okay, we educate children. There's costs that go into, the curriculum we write, the curriculum we develop, the curriculum we implement. So that's a driver. Transportation is growing. We'll talk more about that when we get to that slide. But the CPI, the quote CPI related to transportation, is right now 3.6%. Last year it was 5.8. It's dropped a little bit this year, but remember, 3.6 is greater than what? 2%. Insurance, both health insurance and property and casualty. Our property and casualty insurance came in lower this year than was budgeted, so I'm hoping that the money that we had put aside this year, the increase, we may not have to increase it as much this year, or not at all, because it came in lower last year. Crossing my fingers. As I said, health insurance. State is already implemented a 14% increase. We are self-insured, so we don't necessarily have a premium increase, but I can tell you that this year we're running through November about $500,000 over budget, based upon the inflation in the health benefit marketplace. But we are 27% below the state, so we are doing well comparably to folks who are in the state health benefits plan. Facility and maintenance costs. Well, we our referendum did not go through. The repairs go on. So they're coming. We have had a relatively quiet month of things that are going wrong, but we did have a busy summer of tree maintenance and sewer maintenance, HVAC failures, things like that. But right now we're hoping that we'll have a little bit more of a quiet period. Special ed, we've talked about. Will be another slide later on. Staffing, we'll talk more about that. Technology, we had a quick meeting with our technology folks. We'll talk more about that. And anticipated growth in the Valley. We are seeing it entering our schools, especially at Bear Tavern. And we'll get more into that later on. But we are seeing the growth. There is cost to it. I know that the township said there wasn't, but we are already seeing increases in certain class areas. We are seeing increases in transportation to the effect of 3 additional routes that we've had to adapt to already.
Just the way that the developments are laid out and where the students are, we're going to have to add routes to accommodate
Wait,
the growth.
did you say you had to add 3
We
routes?
Yes.
probably will have to add, but we'll get into that.
We'll get into
This is just the overall.
Not 3 stops.
What's
3
that?
routes.
Routes.
3 routes.
Wow.
Okay. So enrollment, we've seen relatively steady enrollment since about like 2020. We're seeing a slight growth back now. We are seeing some of the students come in. These numbers are effective as of November. What I hear from our principal over at Bear Tavern, that they are expecting at least 5 to 7 students to start on January 2nd. So we will monitor this number through all of our presentations to see how we are growing in enrollment this year alone. Trigger, so looking forward to next year, our first grade enrollment class is looking 20 students higher already based upon kindergarten enrollments right now. So we are seeing some growth. We aren't to the levels we were in the early 2000s, but we are starting to see class sizes increase.
Now, there is a waiver for growth and enrollment, but we're nowhere near that as far as the state is concerned, but we'll keep an eye on that as well.
Right. And there's nothing we can do about that. It's ASSA report to ASSA report. The application for state school aid is done based upon the October 15th count. So we will not see an increase if we ever see it, an increase in enrollment until the ASSA report dictates that we've seen a significant increase.
And Bob, just to make sure I understand how to sort of piece these two slides together. So the bulk of the enrollment is happening among the younger students, correct?
Right now, yeah.
Right now. Okay.
Yep. But we have seen some additional students in Timberlane, but we did have a bigger 5th grade class enter 6th grade this year compared to the one that left and went to high school.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, the Bear Tavern Elementary School is seeing the bulk of it.
Okay. And we're not seeing it as much in the middle or the high school.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
No. So again, we talked a little bit about curriculum and what's going on there. Dr. Plitz has talked about an audit she's going to be having over our language arts program. There'll be standards that have to be addressed there as we enter CUSAC for next year. But again, the curriculum drives a lot of what we do. Transportation, again, we talked about the projected increase to our bus route renewals. Bus route renewals is about 50% of our transportation costs. We as a district transport most of our, if not all of our special education students, some of our regular ed students. We contract out the majority of our regular ed districts, or regular ed students. We continue to have driver and van attendant shortages. We are currently 5 drivers down right now, and we are probably 3 to 4 van attendants down. So that is a constant battle keeping folks here and on our buses. Fuel and parts, again, fuel, we actually pay a pretty decent rate on fuel. We're in a partnership with the township. We get our fuel there. But parts, the cost to repair and to get parts for our buses is incredibly high right now. We are hoping that our contractors will renew this year at that 3.6% rate. They could, if they are seeing escalations in their costs, could kick the routes back so that they can bid higher. But we're hoping that that's going to be it. As I mentioned, we are looking at 3 additional transportation routes right now at a minimum. That's what we have now. They are currently trying to reroute certain buses to eliminate having to add routes midstream. We don't have the drivers right now, and we don't have the contractor who's willing to offer any additional space.
I'm still puzzled by that because you mentioned 5 to 7 new students at Bear Tavern, some more new students at Timberlane. I mean, a bus capacity, unless this is a special ed on, is what, 20, 30 kids? I mean,
No, 54.
Okay, 54. So 3 routes.
So
is
right now
150 kids.
we have routes right now that are not at 54, but
Okay,
the kids aren't close
Oh.
enough together. So we're trying to keep the routes 45 minutes to an hour, and it's very difficult to do that with how far they're spread out. The new development is one long road. So to get into it and to the back of it and back out again, and the development on Scotts Road, you can't make a left-hand turn out of. So you've got to come in and then make a turn back around to go the way you need to go. So they're challenging in routing them. So what we're doing is trying to move some of the routes around to fill some of the buses more, but it's a process because kids keep coming.
And then also you have, if a student comes in with needs and they have siblings and they need to be at one school, we honor having all the siblings at the same school for the ease of the parent, right? So now you might be routing somebody across town to a school that they, first of all, wouldn't be going to,
Yes,
which is helping us because we also bears that capacity.
But I mean, if we're doing that for the ease of the parent, right? We may want to consider saying we're happy to do that for you, but right, like if the busing, well, this shouldn't make the busing more difficult.
Well,
Make it easier. 'Cause you have to
It
do
depends
more.
if they're all on the same bus because some of those students might be on a special bus.
Right.
Right, but
So
the other ones
so
won't.
then I
Right.
think we need to consider talking to the parents and saying, look, we're happy to do it for you, but we're not going to be able to provide two buses. So you either have to get your
That's
but
a
we
lot
have to
for-
fit it. We have to put the regular ed student. We do it, but to
Right.
put the regular ed student sometimes on the special ed bus,
Yeah.
there's not room.
Right. But he's
So-
saying like
So
transport your own students, but that hasn't been our policy because
I know.
if you have little ones
Yes.
and you have one over here and they're over here and different back to school nights, that's a lot to ask a parent with a student would need. But so that's not how we've operated.
Okay. So the courtesy busing tag, just to give, this is just facts. Right now we have 144 courtesy busing students. The majority are in the Stony Brook sending area to go to the high school. No, Stony Brook to go to Stony Brook, and then the Tollgate area to go over to the high school. Since we increased the rate of to $500 at the high school, it's always been $500 at the elementary. We did have students drop out. What we have allowed is one-way transportation, which is costing us money because it's a seat. It's a full seat that you sell for half the price. So the student rides in the morning and not in the afternoon. We only charge them half. So if we don't fill the seat in the afternoon, the seat goes empty. The money we're taking in, the revenue is only $59,000. The average cost of a seat this year for our contracted runs is close to $1,200. Okay, so we're discussing stuff. This is what I'm showing you right now. If we were to eliminate courtesy busing, it would free up probably 3 bus routes, and it could help fill the gap for the buses that we need.
I would prefer that we raise the cost to what the actual cost is, but leave the option there.
So,
I mean, because you're going to be leaving the whole of Pennington without any busing, any option for a bus.
I just don't know what the reaction is going to be to a $1,200 seat for
As
multiple
opposed
students.
to not even having that option at all. Right, and I think that will have to be explained, but I mean,
Or
at least the option is there. People still have the ability to say no. Right, and we'll see where that goes.
I mean, because right now we're only bringing in 5,900, and it's costing us another 113,000.
Yeah.
Again, this is where we are right now. Insurance, kind of touched upon that. I am anticipating, or probably will be budgeting somewhere in the area of a 10% increase for our spend for this year. But again, we are happy that we are still running more efficiently than most districts with our plan. Property and casualty, again, we talked about that. Workers' compensation claims here continue to be high. Regardless of how someone gets hurt, if they get hurt in our building, whether it's because we did something, there was an issue where there was something that caused the slip or fall, or someone just trips over a shoelace that they didn't tie, we're liable, and rates, and this is a national thing, rates continue to climb. I think our rates for workers' comp are somewhere in the area of $700,000 a year. So it's the way the market is right now. Okay. I'm not going to belabor facilities and maintenance. We've talked about this, but all of these different areas on here have, in one way or another, driven costs for the facilities and maintenance department. We are very fortunate that we are able to have our guys do a significant portion of the work. We installed a new a water line from building here from the main water supply underneath this building to go to the transportation and maintenance buildings. We did that on our own, saving us, thousands of dollars in contractor costs. So we are fortunate for that. I added things that flooring on the bottom. There are a number of rooms in the district, especially at Stony Brook now that it's over 20 years old, that we need to replace carpeting and flooring in areas around the district, as well as other things that classrooms have, such as blinds. So there's things that need to be taken care of that aren't being addressed because the repairs are taking them.
Hey, Bob, can you just, maybe for the meeting, if you don't mind, just appeasing me on this one, can we just talk about a worst case scenario off of this slide so the public understands it? Let's say we have an HVAC issue in a building, and that HVAC issue, by regulatory purposes or constraints, we then can't open that building up.
Right.
And then let's say that rainy day fund may not exist. What happens next? Like, what do we have to do if we don't physically have the money, worst case scenario, in order to deal with that situation?
I mean, you can do temporary borrowing. You can do a lease purchase to generate monies on that. We do have a capital reserve money that we could draw on to do temporary. There's always a way to do temporary heating. You could bring in a truck that you can wire in to do temporary heating.
How long could that potentially take?
Right, because
That's what I'm getting
that's
at.
what we need to
How
get
long
to.
would that potentially
It's
take?
not going to be quick.
I mean, there are ways to mobilize within a few days to get temporary things
All right.
Mhm.
going.
Bob,
I mean, there's
so-
space heaters and things like
Yeah.
that you.
Let's get
could bring
specific.
in.
We had a well pump fail at Timber
Right,
last
exactly.
year. You said a number of times, we got lucky that the part got
Mhm.
found.
Mhm.
If Tom didn't call 20 places and found what was the only place that had the part in the state, we would have been out.
We could have gotten, again, for that, we could have gotten a truck. If a long-term solution, you could have gotten. So Bear Tavern had lost its. We thought there was a clog in the Bear Tavern pump station. It was a broken line out in front of the building. Sewage was coming up through the ground, and we brought a truck in to pump out the waste. It was expensive, but for a day we were able to get that out. You could do that on a regular basis.
For a well?
You could get a truck to come in and bring potable water in. It could be run through the system. It's not ideal, but you could do it. Or you'd have to go and try to rent a temporary facility.
So that would take time, and in the meantime, so your question is,
what happens?
your child would be home with their Chromebook.
Yeah.
The district would go immediately to e-learning, right?
Now, does the whole district go to e-learning?
Just that school, right? We don't want to disrupt the rest of the school if
Right.
the buildings are still viable. But I can't open the buildings until I have a viable water source, right? Kids are at home, and the state doesn't count those days as actual days until you've been out 3 consecutive days in a row. Then they will go back retroactively and say, okay, those days are blessed. We'll count those as real school days. But in the meantime, mom and dads, caregivers need to go to work, and your kids are at home, and I can't give you a definite until.
So we're going to
Right.
COVID-style learning,
Yes.
except the employers are not, the parents' employers are not
Right.
going to be as understanding as they
Right.
were during COVID. of
There are
the
folks that
situation.
can help us with this. There are schools that we talked about. Go back to Hurricane Sandy. There are a lot of schools that found temporary places to go. If they have a fire, you can find there are districts that we can call, and the state will help. The county office will help us find.
But all of that takes time.
That takes time.
Right, but that's where we get on our horses and we try to find.
But here's the thing.
Solution
So
quickly.
I guess what they're trying to get to, and this is why we're talking about this now again at this time of year, and we did this last year, same time. These are real problems that I don't want us to get to that position where we're backed into a corner. Yes, if your house floods, you can go check in a hotel, right? We don't want to get into this situation. And so what I have to recommend to this community again is a referendum in the fall. Now, I don't know if the board's ready for that yet or not. We're on that listening tour. Folks are telling us some of the sticking points with the last one. They're also alarmed because they're seeing the effects of these buildings coming apart. We just had the fire trucks at Stony Brook again, just this past week, right? So we can't just keep our fingers crossed and hope things fail. And if they do, we can scramble around and spend more money we don't have to stick our finger in the dike that's about ready to blow, right? So we have to address this by going back to the community. We've already had the architects telling us what does this look like without the turf field and the restrooms and the concession stand, and the cost, as was I feared, is exactly the same as it would have been with those items. It's gone up. Everything's gone up. Nothing's going down. And I don't anticipate costs will go down by November, right? So that's where we are. So it's not good. If we have a catastrophic failure, kids will be at home. Yes, we have a mechanism to deal with it, and nobody wants that again.
Yeah.
At least I don't think so.
I agree, and I
All
think
right.
my point. Yeah, thank you. And I think my point in asking that, Bob, was it's absolutely zero reflection at all on our ability to figure it out, because I think we've proven under your leadership and Tom's leadership we can do that. It's more of there's going to be a day to 5 day disruption if any one of these things do happen, and I'm going to continue to be very vocal about this throughout this process and these meetings so everybody understands it.
And
It's all knock on wood right now.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Well, which I think,
Bob,
I think that's their.
to put it allegorically, Tom's really good at duct taping stuff. At some point, the duct tape will just not hold.
That's what we're hoping to get
Yeah.
through that to the port where everything's going to be fixed.
And just as an extension to what Mark and Dr. Treese are saying, is that yes, we can scramble, yes, but there will be some level of disruption, and the cost to bringing in a truck for the Band-Aid solution is costly and will eat into the very funds we're trying to save in order to fix it properly. So it just extends the amount of time it takes us to actually do the full repair. Okay,
All right.
I think we've underscored.
Yeah.
Slide 7.
All right. We've touched a lot on special education already. I don't know if Paulette has anything else.
So on this one, I had asked just to give actually public an idea of like what we're spending on, just for a list of out of district schools and what we're paying them. I was criticized for asking for something that I shouldn't be asking. However, the information is actually in our minutes. It's just not collated. Like if you go to October minutes, right, it has a line item that says, because we need to approve it under the finance item that says, hey, there's a contract that needs to be approved. This amount of money is going to that school. It actually says for how many students, which is not something that I'm interested in. But I think for the public, it's important to see the cost and the amount of money that's leaving the district for no other reason than to better appreciate the value of the work that Paulette is doing in trying to keep as many kids in district as possible. Because we do a lot of work to be able to keep them in district and provide those programs, right? And they are more expensive than regular instruction programs, but I think it's really valuable for people to have that perspective. It's just how expensive things are. And again, I didn't ask for anything that's not out there in public domain already. It's just that I would have to go and scour the last 2 or 3 years of meeting minutes to pull all the contracts out where there's probably an easily accessible summary. Don't need it in this meeting, but that's something that we should get to.
I'm going to add something in here if that's okay. So I'm going to go one step further on the litigation piece. I would actually like to see this on a PowerPoint slide at a meeting, because I want everyone in the community to understand what's happening when it comes to some of the situations happening with some of the private schools within the community. I think this is just a bigger part of the conversation around money that's being spent, not because we have a lapse of something in the district. In fact, it's the exact opposite. And I'll echo what Alex is saying about Paulette and her entire program. Like, we have one of the best in the state, and we know that, and we want to protect it. And as we're all talking as a district about where money disappears to, and as the public asks us for this idea of transparency, to me, when we show where things go because of things that we agree or disagree on, is equally important to where we're spending money on and not spending money on as we're cutting. So I would like us to show this in more detail somehow as we're talking about this over the course of the next couple months, and I would just defer to the administration on how you guys want to show it.
I think we'd have to figure out whether or not how specific at all. I don't know how
So,
specific
so,
we can get
so,
with the
so
litigation. We
in
could-
the October minutes, right, in the public October minutes,
It
it said school, number of students, and total amount. I am not even interested in the number of students, just the school
That's right.
and the money amount, right? And I do definitely want to, as Mark said, have it broken down by placements that Paulette recommends versus court order litigations. I'm much more inclined to say that if Paulette recommends it, we absolutely need to spend it. Court
Amen.
ordered litigation. Well, we still have to spend it because the court ordered, but I think that we need to be transparent with the taxpayers about the money that's going out of the district.
I mean, in the budget document itself, it shows exactly what monies were allocated to special education tuition.
Right,
We
but
can
we're asking
probably-
for a second level of detail, which is what specific schools.
I mean, roughly, we have 51 students in out-of-district placements right now, so we are up by about 15. And of those, the total tuition combined is roughly $3,800,000.
Yeah, that's where I had it.
Right, so we're asking, forget about the number of students, right? School, amount of money, and whether this is something that's court ordered or this is something that we agreed is necessary.
Yeah, I'm going to have to find out what I can disclose and what I cannot disclose.
Yeah.
So I can't answer that right now.
But and that's fine, but I'm just pointing out that information is, as far as I can see, in the minutes. I would just have to scour over the minutes meeting by meeting to get it.
No, we do.
Oh yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Oh yeah, we do.
Yeah. No,
Not
no,
for
no,
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 not
litigation. The
when
big,
we
like,
approve the
full
All right,
contract.
we will do some
Yeah.
research on our end to see
Okay.
what we can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
share.
And again, I just want to echo for the public that this is about not what a concern about the spend of the money or Paulette's recommendation. This is a conversation that we are having about every part of the business, and this is one. And I say business, running the district. Right. That's right. There's 3 pillars where money comes from, and this is one of the big pillars, right? And in order for us to be able to understand and allow for the public to understand where money is going, and I care about court order more than anything, being candid. Like, I want the public to understand that there is a significant amount of money going out there. But again, it is zero reflection on the great work that Paulette and her team does. Zero reflection that we're asking this.
Yeah, well, and they spend a lot of time in court dealing with those issues.
Which is not,
Correct.
yes, which is not their time well spent.
Preventative for us.
Okay.
So again, as Dr. Tree said in the beginning of our presentation, staffing is a huge part of our budget. Combined with health benefits, we are, again, we have our 2 largest bargaining units up for negotiation as we speak. We're currently engaged in negotiations with our teaching staff. As soon as we finish that, or concurrently, we will probably start working with our support staff unit, which is our 2nd largest unit. We know that settlements are going to probably be in excess of the 2% that we've been speaking of. The current contracts that we've already set, there are 4 other units that we have, and they're all settled above 2%. There's continues to be a teacher shortage, unlike that I've ever seen in my career in education. Candidates have now the ability to shop as if, before, I remember when I came into the profession, I was happy to get the job, and I was whatever you offered, I'm taking it. Just give me the job. Right? Now they're saying, is that the best you can do? And Dan and I sit in consternation. What do you want to do? They need this teacher. It's like, well, can't we go back out? No, we need somebody now. We're out of compliance with this, that, or the other thing. We have to hire somebody today, and we're going to have to pay them, higher than base salary rate. Again, veteran staff are leaving districts in unprecedented numbers. When you had tenure, you almost never left the district. And once you got to the upper steps on a salary guide, 14, 15, 16, top of the guide, you didn't even think about leaving. You were too expensive to go somewhere else. Now they're leaving. People are leaving at the top of their guide with longevity and coming to other districts just because they can. Again, in contract settlements, it's an unprecedented time in attempting to staff our position.
No, I was just going to say, even in the 5 years since I've been in this position, we used to have 20 to 25, 30 people applying for a position, and it's just dwindling down to maybe you get 3 or 4 people applying, all of which have at least 5, 6, 7 years of experience. That comes in expensive. We pay year for year. We're very consistent so that protects the district from false lawsuits over, how you're placing people. And that's the biggest thing, I think, what Bob said. We have staff or teachers coming out of colleges, and, we have quite the reach where we're talking to all the different schools. We're on Handshake. We're working with the different universities, trying to get these new students, and they say, well, what can you do for me? I can go over there and I can get this, or I'm getting this. And so that's quite difficult. That plays into contract settlements and what our salaries, mins and maxes look like. All these things come into it. And Bob's 100% right. After COVID, we have seen so many veteran staff say, I always wanted to come to Hopewell, and I saw this position. And they know that we don't have a lot of applicants. And so it's the time for them to do that.
So it's not as much we're losing, it's where we have openings for getting veteran folks in,
Correct.
which means our salary increases.
Which is good for the kids, but
Great for the
not
kids,
good for the
but not
budget.
Good for the
Exactly.
budget.
Exactly.
Can you speak to the and excuse my ignorance here, but these entry level staff, and if all of the schools are faced with the same challenges right now regarding sort of budget shortfalls and challenges looking forward, how are they able to give higher salaries than we are to make it more enticing?
So that's part of negotiations, and it's
Okay.
part of how the salary guide is created and what the agreed upon rates are. So that's something that we've discussed in previous negotiations. We continue to discuss is how we can raise that minimum, but
Mhm.
there's a lot that goes into the negotiation of where the money's placed on a salary guide. There are also some rare districts who are adding things, bonuses you might have heard over the last few years. Not all able to continue doing that. Money is involved, and I think some practices have been looked at as to how can they do this, and where's the fairness. It comes with lawsuits afterwards. Why did that person get the money? Why didn't I? What were you basing that on? So there's a lot that goes into that.
We are very careful, as Tana said, to make sure that when we hire people, we're hiring them consistently with our practice, and not just saying this person has 15 years experience, but they said they would take less. We don't do that because it just opens the district up to a lawsuit, but also Tana, I personally, for bias or whatever. So we have a policy where we maintain the way we always assign experience. It's the best practice.
And we're all so desperate that people are paying well beyond, like we pay more than I would like to pay for some staff members, because if you only have 2 that apply, right, and they're both at the top of the salary guide, or they're veteran teachers, you have no choice. It's either that or not have enough teachers, which some districts are running without full staff right now. So we're fortunate to not be in that situation. But some right next door to us have been running without teachers in classrooms for over 2 years. So we don't want to get into that situation either.
And we are too. We have instances where we are using our own people in period subbing because we don't have the staff that are either ready to be. They're in between. We have an opening. We have a person going out on a leave, and we haven't replaced them yet. And subs are still hard to find.
Yeah, we are actually fully staffed with substitutes, more than we've had, but we have so many who are not coming back. So they get approved every year, and then they just don't take the jobs. So that's another issue, is the sub shortage. Some of the regulars, group you might even remember faces that were always here day after day in the classrooms, and they've chosen not to return, or they're just not doing it anymore.
And we talked today about people who just don't come. Like they've come for 3 or 4 weeks in a row, and all of a sudden they don't want to come anymore.
And that's another thing. The board has been very supportive in raising the sub rates. If you remember, we talked about that a lot over the last few years, and we have a very good rate comparatively in Mercer County now. They're just not working.
Do the shortages also span over to paraprofessionals? And
Yes.
okay, and is there any interest from like our paraprofessionals to potentially like step into like get training or whatever?
We've done that.
For teaching?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yes. We actually just discussed that last week. We have so many paraprofessionals who we have moved into a teaching role.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great pipeline because they know our district, they know our students, our culture, and how things work, and they have done a great job. So we are really happy that that's something that we've been doing and utilizing. Then we have to replace the paraprofessional,
Which is a problem.
which is often IEP driven, and so then we get stuck in that situation. But it's a great pipeline that we've created.
And the universities are now working with us based on some of the work that we've done, and they're creating programs for these, prepare us to become teachers. So we have done that, and we're looking at some just recently, that new ones that we've hired as teachers.
All right. Technology, again, as we've heard before, technology is involved in almost everything we do now, from HVAC installs to, every device that we bring into our system. We are starting now to see some of our infrastructure that needs to be replaced. We had a brief meeting with tech last week. There's some changes to our badging system that we need to address. Our badges are slowly becoming outdated and more susceptible to. They're just not as secure as they used to be, so we need to upgrade that. There's a Chromebook refresh that we're going to need to address. We are trying to keep a 4-year refresh on Chromebooks, but we've pushed that out to 5 and even 6 years. So we need to figure out how we're going to fund that. So we have a lot of discussions with technology that are going to be coming up this winter as well. Again, just some of the things that we've done. You've seen this before. Our health benefits have really kind of saved us. We don't experience the increases that other folks have seen. We continue to bring our students back home to that least restrictive environment Paulette talks about. It's become difficult with some issues over the past several years. The litigation we talked about, but we're continuing to work with that. We try to reduce staff and even administration over the years through enrollment. We are seeing that we've gone as low as we possibly can go, especially at the elementary schools. If we were to keep those class sizes that we were used to, that's a discussion topic of that we're going to be talking about, class size. We do still participate in the school choice program. That brings us, about $350,000 in revenue, just to help fill some of our open seats in our fine arts program. Our cooperative purchasing continues to save us money by lumping our district in with hundreds of other districts. We're able to benefit from not only time savings but also cost savings through bulk purchasing. And again, our facilities department has saved us money, even though it's costing money now. But we're able to do things cheaper with our own staff members than other districts who have to contract out for everything. This is this year's budget. This is not a projected budget for next year. This is just how we are looking at our budget now. As you can see, our general, special ed, and staff benefits is more than 3/4 of that pie. With other services that you would consider mandatory as part of the program, your athletics, co-curricular, your transportation, all of those things are necessary to running.
So Bob, this is my chart that I always like to talk about. So when I look at these and I look at slices that are somewhat big, right? There's really only 2 slices that we have control over, and that's the blue general education slide and the operations. Right? Can't do anything about benefits. Can't really do anything about special ed. We can, if we try and muck with it, we'll probably only increase costs. Right? Can't do anything about debt service. Athletics is fairly small. So what I am anticipating is as we try and make the budget work, or as you try and make the budget work, those are going to be the two slices that you play with, right? So I want to think about in two extremes, right? One extreme is we try and keep the general education as it is, right? Which means that we got to take money out of operations and maintenance, which means we're really gambling with our ability to keep the district open. But I would like to ask you guys to somehow consider and give us a sense of how large of a gamble it is.
So
The
that's what
hold
we've
on a
been
second.
doing.
So
yeah, but
let-
I'm saying that's what we've been doing. We've gutted the facilities, the maintenance budget. It's been flat for
Years.
years. So what is
But-
happening now is that's not going to play anymore. We have to touch general education.
So what you're saying is we don't have any choice. We have to touch.
You're going to continue to keep it flat. You're going to continue to not do what you need to do, which is what we've been doing anyway, right? and then,
Well, but that's what I'm saying. But one extreme is we do even less on the facilities. We're gambling, and I think it's very important to show to the board and to the public what that gambling actually means, right? The other extreme is we do what we need to do for the facilities to really drive the risk of us having to close schools down as low as possible. That's gonna cause some real significant pain on the general education, right? But I'd like to understand what that is in terms of class sizes, for example, right?
And that's what we're going to be doing.
And then whatever recommendation you come with, I imagine is going to be somewhere in between those two extremes. But I think, when you have only two variables that you're playing with, to me at least, I always like to understand what the extremes are, because it gives you a better perspective about the importance of trade-offs that were being made, right?
So right, and that's what the plan is to do as we move forward into the winter. Again, this was just an overview tonight.
Right.
But
So that's
I would argue with you in a little bit, and Paulette and I have been working closely over the past several weeks. We're not saying that there's no room to say, and Paulette, you've come up with close to $200,000 in cuts, and tweaking her other areas within that. So there's room to find, and we're looking for pieces. Athletics, we're going to look in athletics. Whether it's by adding revenue from fees or by looking at, we're not going to run a freshman program here. We're not going to run this program now.
And
So-
little things do add up.
They
But
will.
at the end of the day, much of special ed is mandated. Much of transportation is mandated. Staff benefits, mandated, right? Contractually obligated, right? So yes, there's little things that you can play with there, but there's only two pies that we as a board control, right? I mean, it would be a terrible idea, but we could, as a board, decide to just not have an operations and maintenance budget, period. Right, because we control that, right? So there's only two slices.
You can't,
that we
because
really
there's
have
certain
control.
you've seen that required. There's things that you have to do to run the building. You've got to pay for your energy. You've got got to do
but,
those.
but those are the two big things that we do control, right? Those are the two
I would
big
think that
areas
the
we
biggest
have.
thing that you control is the general ed budget.
Yeah.
You could say is we're not running
Right.
AP classes anymore.
And that's
We're
why
not running this anymore.
And
operations is not really a place that you have control over. Yes, in theory you do. But it's just like not maintaining your house, not getting things maintained, and eventually something's going to blow. And in addition to that, we are monitored for if we're keeping up on these things.
yes, but what I'm saying is we need to show that, in order to keep things as they are, right? What is the pain that we're going to pay on the operations? What kind of ridiculous state are we going to have to get to? We're not maintaining the house, right? But I mean, those are the only two things that the only two big areas that I see as a board member where we as a board have any control: operations and maintenance, and yeah, the blue one. So yes, you guys are gonna. Sorry, I stutter on certain sounds. So I'm sure you guys will, because I've seen some of it, will find a lot of savings in little areas that will add up to not an insignificant amount, but they will also not address the fundamental problem that we're going to have to deal with, right? It's not like you're going to be able to cut things here and there and suddenly come back and say, oh, we dodged the bullet for this year. We're not going to dodge it this year.
No, I think we all agree.
And the key is there at the bottom. It's salaries and benefits for all staff is about 76% of the budget.
Yeah.
We said it before. The way to make cuts is through people. That's that's where we are. We mentioned it earlier. 92% of our budget is from local funding. State funding is about 7%. Federal funding is 1% of our budget. But we are in large part funded through local sources. Property taxes have come down. Property taxes used to be in the 90s, and now it's dropped a little bit. We have received additional state aid over the last 7
You
years.
want to be careful. Property taxes have not come down. The share that the property taxes.
Correct. The percentage of the budget, yes.
I wish property taxes had come down.
And again, this is what I started at the beginning, back in 16, 17, where we had $1.8 million of surplus in our budget, to the last 3 years where we're teetering on that edge of $4 million of surplus in our budget. It becomes an unsustainable number. To be able to pull $4 million out of a budget each year and hope that you find some savings within that budget, whether through whatever. You have teachers that go out on leave, the substitutes that come in are the long-term subs coming in are not making the money that higher paid teachers making. You never know what's going to happen. So we'll see what happens with that. But it is a thing that keeps me up at night, turns my hair whiter than it already is. It's hard. I worry about it. My audit came through. We made it through this past year. And it's just something that I want to try to get lowered in our budget. I know we've had a lot of questions already.
I think I'm out of questions on this topic.
We have a lot of work. Rosetta and her team have a lot of work to be doing over the month of January and into February. And we'll be keeping the board appraised. And we'll probably, again, be looking at extra board meetings in January, February.
Thanks, Bob. And Dr. Therese?
That was 20 minutes, right?
No.
20 minutes,
Yeah,
yeah.
please.
Yeah.
It's not holiday discussion. We needed to talk about it.
Okay. Just all joking aside, we're good with questions for now? Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving
Don't
on.
pass it. You don't want to give me- okay.
Just a quick note about old business. We talked a couple of different times about our self-eval, and coming off of the referendum and everything else that we were dealing with timing-wise just did not work to our advantage. So what will probably be happening is we'll initiate one during the break, and going into next year, we'll debrief at the beginning of following our reorg. So just it was somewhat intentional, just realizing it didn't make a lot of sense for everything we were dealing with to put that out there. So you can do it while you're having your holiday cookies, at least while you're relaxed. So that'll come out in the green notes for this week. Okay. All right. With that, we're going to move into our public comment section, and members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You're asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Ed may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by the district administration. With that, our timekeeper.
And yep. So as usual, yellow means you have 30 seconds left, and red means that you're just gonna use the gavel. Yes.
Awesome. All right. With that, public comment section is now open. Please don't forget to sign in at the podium.
I signed in already. Thanks for the new microphone. It's wonderful.
Yay.
And especially on, I hope I'm not being timed on this, please, on Zoom, because you can't hear. Anyway, okay, if I was timed, that's all right. On November 22nd, Jason Kelsey revealed that his wife Kylie is pregnant, expecting their 4th child, and it's a girl, a baby girl. How do they know it's a girl when the due date is months away? Maybe they peeked at an ultrasound or got results from a prenatal blood test. According to Policy 5756 and public comments in November, Jason's announcement makes our schools unsafe and hostile to students who identify as trans or gender expansive. In 2024, we can't state that sex in humans is binary, male or female, and we must wait until a sex is assigned to a baby when they are born. To respond to public comments in November and for information for the community in September, I asked the board to revise some definitions in Policy 5756 to facilitate clearer communication. No suggestion was made to change any other section of the policy, to repeal the policy, or to prevent students who identify as trans or gender expansive from receiving appropriate medical care. The suggestions were: add the definition of the term sex, an objective reality, to distinguish it from gender, which is based on feelings. Sex and gender should never be conflated in law and policy. Change the phrase, all people have a gender identity, to some people believe they have a gender identity, because not everyone in this school district, in this community, agrees with the political ideology of queer theory. The adjective some would demonstrate respect for diverse views. Replace the phrase sex assigned at birth with sex observed and confirmed at birth. I'm not sure why Jason's announcement was given so much positive publicity on social media. He should be reminded that using modern medical technology to announce the sex of his preborn daughter makes our world unsafe. How do we as adults, board members, and administrators justify making it so confusing for young people today? Policy 5756 can be written so that it secures personal protections and rights and be scientifically correct and accurate. It could do both, unless, of course, there is a socio-political agenda. Are elected board members activists first, or are they academics second? Doesn't your code of ethics state that I will refuse to surrender my independent judgment to special interest groups? Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none.
Thank you, Mrs. Kosis, for your comments. And we did have your comments when we reviewed the policy 5756 at our last policy meeting last month. And based on our research, our conversations with our board attorney and the expectations in alignment with code, we will not be making any changes at this time.
Okay, seeing none, no other comments. The public comment section is now closed. Moving on to consent agenda items. I need a first and second to
Motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The chorus over there, sorry. Any abstaining or opposing? Okay, seeing none, all consent agenda items are passing. We're going to go ahead and move into brief committee updates. I think a lot of
I'll
shorter agenda.
I think facilities we're going to be quick. We did not have a meeting because Bob let me know that there was no need for an update from facilities, which is great news because we didn't have anything happen. Of course, since then we had a small issue at Stony Brook.
Had some plumbing issues, but our
Yeah,
internal guys
but
took care of it.
nothing major.
Nothing terrible.
I'm gonna knock on wood.
Okay.
And then Bob was readying the budget presentation and some other things that you saw for today, but he wasn't going to be ready to discuss it in the meeting. And anyway, what you saw today was an overview.
So yeah,
so
we
that's
do
it.
have an
So
update that we do have and Dr. Treese referred to it a little bit. We do have the updated numbers from the architect based upon the feedback that we gave him. We'll be meeting right after the agenda of the organization meeting in January to discuss options. What we were asked to do was to reclassify the projects. We took the existing referendum and classified projects as 1, 2, or 3, and the board will take a look at it and see how they want to proceed and what number.
Yep.
As I had suspected, the number did not drop, even taking out the things that were the highly controversial things and leaving the critical items. The number, the 1 and 2, level 1 and 2, and whether the board determines that they're still 1 and 2, the number is higher than it was. It's just the way it is. It's escalation in cost. You're looking now 2 years further down the road, and it is what it is. But we will be discussing the rankings and what the board feels comfortable with, the committee anyway, and we'll come back to the full board to have a further discussion. As I said, we're probably going to need some kind of another meeting in January to discuss in depth some of these topics.
And Bob, just to clarify, you may have said this, but I missed it, just for folks who aren't on the committee. So the 1, 2, 3 rankings are essentially the level of urgency of
Correct.
the project. And so we had asked them to come back with a ranking so that we could really look at an itemized list of each project and then if it's on fire, essentially. Yeah.
All right, any questions other than? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to personnel.
Yeah, we're good. So we met, as we normally do right before this meeting. We're going to have some roll call actions that are fairly normal for appointments as well as some of the extracurriculars. I did want to take some time on behalf of the board to congratulate a few of our staff and teachers here for the Governor's Educator and Support Professionals of the Year. So I'll just go through those names. Very exciting. We always like doing this and talking about the great work that our teachers and our staff do. So Denise Ewing in Transportation. I might butcher some of these, so my apologies. Terry Montagna, who's also a paraprofessional. Carrie Roll, a paraprofessional. We'll talk about some of the teachers. Doug Morrison, Leigh Fessmeyer, Pam Welts, Leah Anderson, Jamie Adler, and Jamie Toronto. All right. Congratulations, everybody. Thanks for all the hard work that you're doing. And that's it. So we got to do the roll call now?
You need to do a motion first.
A motion. We'll motion for the roll call. How about
Motion.
Second.
Now we need to do a roll call. Okay. Mr. Kapadia.
Yes.
Dr. Lilliston.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Dr. Resnick.
Yep.
Mr. Slotman. Dr. Wilson.
Yes.
Ms. Williams Galliano.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So I just want to give a quick shout out to the Hopewell Valley Ed Foundation. So all of the support people of the year and our educators of the year will be honored on March 21st at the Above and Beyond HVF Gala. We'll have more information as soon as we have the location. No, I don't think we have the location yet. So I will publicize that as soon as we have it. So it was a great opportunity to celebrate all of our educators.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right. AdCom. I'll take AdCom. Dr. Felicitas is not feeling well, so I'll take the AdCom. We had a good AdCom meeting. We did have a review of the TMS math waiver program and the effect it's having on the agenda, but we moved that into the January meeting just to collect some more data. We had a number of course proposals. Dana Heller proposed 2 new courses in TMS that really focus on educating our kids on how to use and take advantage of modern technology for presenting their ideas, also how not to use modern technology, and we are talking about AI. Very positive discussion. So one course is geared towards kids who need some extra help, and I think in that case it is doubly important. and then one course in 8th grade kind of builds on what we're already doing. And the only thing that we discussed is for that 8th grade elective, taking some of the skills that were presented as part of that elective and pushing them into the core curriculum
Yes,
classes that all the
okay, that's
kids
an option.
have to take. So that's something that the administration is going to look into. Then we reviewed a proposal for 3 additional courses at the high school. Highlight, because we had a discussion about this and it's very important in the context of the budget discussion. When the committee proposed that the board approve these courses, what we're approving is putting the courses in the catalog, and they will only be offered if there is sufficient student interest. So we're not increasing the budget at the same time as we're trying to cut it, but these are courses that our teachers believe are going to be very important, that should have sufficient interest, and if they do, then we will run them, and if they don't, we won't. The other thing that we discussed is being creative and flexible in terms of reducing the cost of curriculum
Yes,
development for
absolutely.
these
So
courses.
it's
So
an
that's
add-on.
yeah.
They have to sort out how they're going to write curriculum because we really have to
Yes.
be cost neutral as best
Yep.
as we can.
Yep. So we're going to find, and there are some creative ways that were discussed to make sure that we can be essentially cost neutral in the curriculum development. So the 3 courses are Creative Community Design 3, which already builds on Creative Community Design 1 and 2 courses that we already have. So this will simply be the 3rd course in the sequence that we've pioneered. Environmental Science as a college prep level course alternative to an AP course, and there we talked about, again, being creative about how we run that and possibly looking into options where apparently some schools run different level courses in the same classroom, and then kids, depending on what the kids are signed up for, their work, the work that they do is going to change. And then the 3rd course is academic writing, which is teaching kids who are not into creative writing how to be able to express their thoughts in a written form. And the one comment, which I think was unanimous from the committee back, is the course should not be called academic writing, but something that will also attract those kids who want to go into trades, because it's a skill that's being able to write technically and clearly is a skill that's important, whether you go into college and become a STEM person, or you go into trade, or you go into any other area that's not a creative writing area. So all 3 of those are going ahead as a course that will be in a catalog, and then we'll see where they're going to be. Yeah, and last but definitely not least, Dan Umstead and Kim Lester gave us an overview of the revised EA program, and it seems like Kim's really doing a great job in terms of just the way she's structuring the program, improving the experience that the kids are having. She gave us an overview of some of the projects that they're doing. Really what we spend most of the time on is how do we continue to get away from COGAT being the major means that we evaluate whether the kids belong in this program or not. And then the other comment that was made by me is that we need to think about how to clearly explain to the parents what EA means. It doesn't mean the same thing as an advanced level math or English, right? It's not for the kids that are getting A pluses. It's for kids that are really exceptional in a particular area, but may not be doing well academically in other areas because they need a different approach to schooling, and that's not something that is necessarily clear to parents when they are looking at what this program is. So that was that. I don't think we have any actions for approval. So, questions?
Awesome. Thank you. moving on to community relations.
We had three elements to discuss last Friday. The first one was the development of citizens. Essentially, we proposed a deliberative town hall, which is essentially a process in which students are involved in deliberating in front of some, I guess, local political leader or somebody that's an official of the local government, and to practice the skills of deliberation, which are pretty important in terms of being a good citizen. The next element was I suggested I'd like to get some state data in terms of how much the kids understand democracy, and how do they understand it in reference to who they are, what they're doing, and how they how they're going to grow into being citizens. And the final piece was just a little bit on the referendum, which apparently we're going to be bouncing from one school to the next in our school board meetings, and making sure that everyone gets the message. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to SEL.
So I spoke earlier about Hope Squad. So Miss Corey Rudd, our supervisor of counseling, joined us at our meeting and walked us through the Hope Squad initiative, which is a suicide prevention. It actually starts at 4th grade through 12th grade. So I touched base on that earlier. The second piece that Corey presented was our Tier 2 intervention for social emotional learning. We Corey and Dr. Beth Hoffman, our elementary supervisor of special education, applied for a Hopewell Valley Ed Foundation grant and were awarded it to pilot Character Strong Tier 2 intervention across all 4 elementary schools for the 25-26 school year. So we will be awarded the grant and begin the process and the trainings and discussion in June of this year, of 2025, and then implement it starting in September.
Any questions?
I don't have a question, just one thing to add, which I thought was great, was Corey did share that as part of these grant proposals, they wrote in strong components around data collection, be able to really assess how these programs are working for the schools, so that we can then go and apply for funding if we find out that they work. So I think the committee was really happy to hear that. So.
Okay. Awesome. Do you have anything to share?
No, just I think I've already shared it in the update with that Ms. McGrath is working very closely with Dr. Bertel to gather resources about any grant opportunities that may be out there. They have met with the green teams to figure out how they're going to support our gardens, our community gardens. And they're going around to the different committees to meet with us to talk to us about what the recommendations are within the areas of expertise, for that committee. So their next stop, I believe, is Education Program Committee, is where they're going to be stopping, talking about some curricular things they'd like to see. I know Dr. Plitzis is already working on one of those out of a request of Mr. Kapadia, but also it's in the Climate Action Plan about looking at agriculture as adding elements of that to the curriculum. That's a quick update.
Thank you. All right, moving on to policy.
So this one's short. The policy committee did not meet because we have no policies up for second reading, and with the reorganization coming, it's not customary to send incomplete policies over to the next group. So we look forward to a busy January, hopefully.
Well, yeah, the reason we do it is we don't try to approve policies at the end of one board. We want that board to approve both ends.
Perfect. All right. I think we have everything in routine is consent. All right. We're gonna move into. All right.
Yeah.
That's our fun part. Okay.
So
and
I move and second it, but we're not gonna do any committees. Obviously, we don't have any
Right.
committees yet. But I'm gonna give you the dates of just the reorg meeting and the meeting in January, just so that folks can get it on their calendars.
very well. First and second for December and January calendars.
Motion. Second.
Okay. Reorg and
Okay, so the reorg meeting is January 6th at 6:30.
and we'll be
Be here.
That'll be
Be here. Okay, and then the first meeting of the month is going, or the regular meeting is going to be on the 27th. Again, we didn't want to do it the 13th because that's right after the reorg meeting. The 20th is the holiday, and we try to keep on Mondays when we can. So the 27th is the thing that will work best for that. Again, we'll talk. Dr. Treese and staff will talk that we probably should get some kind of a meeting scheduled that week of the 13th. Maybe we do a midweek, or maybe we do something. We have to figure out what date works for everybody. You guys are all very busy, so we need to try to find something so we can discuss in detail some of the things that came up tonight without having other action that we need.
Would this be an in-person or an online meeting? I'm probably gone most of that week.
I mean, we haven't set. We'll do some kind of a note, but I mean, I guess we could do it remotely, but it's better to have. I probably think it's better in person than it is remote.
and the 27th will be a very
Yeah, hopefully.
We're gonna try to have it.
so it's still questionable.
We have our guy probably laughing in the other room as he's sitting there, but he is assessing the viability of moving from building to building.
Thank you.
Back there.
All right. All right. We don't need to do anything. Okay. New business items.
How do I? What's the protocol? How do I motion for it?
Well, so just present because everybody. Just to be clear, there is a new item that we have discussed electronically. It's been shared with the board, so you could just basically read the proposed.
All right. Well, this was spoken about in the November board meeting. I believe also a new business where we discussed potentially establishing an ad hoc government relations committee. So after speaking with the board president, we decided instead of waiting until next year and going for a full-fledged standing committee, we want to right now establish an ad hoc government relations committee that will spend the next year fleshing out the details and viability, as well as making sure that we're following all relevant guidelines in state law and board ethics to make sure that it can eventually become a standing committee. But with that, I'll read aloud the resolution for the public, and as well just in case any board members did not have a chance to review the document. So all it is it's a resolution establishing an ad hoc government relations committee. There's two preambulatory clauses. The first one reads, whereas the Hopewell Valley Regional School District Board of Education recognizes the critical importance of fostering and maintaining robust relationships with local, county, and state government entities to ensure the effective delivery of quality education and oversight of educational structure. The second preamble is the board acknowledges the necessity of pursuing all potential avenues to secure resources and funding for the district, while also articulating policy concerns to policymakers to advocate effectively for the district's needs. Therefore, be it resolved that the Hopewell Valley Regional School District Board of Education hereby establishes an ad hoc government relations committee with the following purposes and responsibilities. So clause 1, which is the purpose, it is meant to enhance the board's engagement with local, county, and state political entities. staying abreast of policies and fostering partnerships that support the district's ability to deliver high-quality education while laying the groundwork for a standing government relations committee in alignment with board ethics, state law, and relevant guidelines. The responsibilities, there's 3 central responsibilities that are outlined in the resolution. Firstly, establishing and maintaining ongoing relationships with the Hopewell Township Committee, Hopewell Borough Council, Pennington Borough Council, Mercer County officials, and state legislators from the 15th Legislative District. The second responsibility is researching and proposing ethical guidelines for the committee's long-term operations as a prospective standing committee. And thirdly, advocating for state funding and policy solutions to government leaders that address HVRSD's needs. And the last clause is just a timeline that explicitly says that the committee shall provide a recommendation to the board president by December 2025, outlining strategic actions, ethical practices, and a proposal to transition into a standing government relations committee.
Thank you. So, any questions?
Yeah, good question. Thank you for doing this. I've told you that since day one. Like, I commend you on that. So kudos. Just so I'm understanding this, we are not going to do anything until December 2025 and then have an ad hoc? Is that?
No, so, I mean, right now, no, it would be established for January 2025.
Okay.
If we pass it today, it would, yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of the logic of doing an ad hoc is, one, it's going to allow us to still get to that work of speaking with legislators and having those conversations of securing additional funding resources.
Okay.
But as it's outlined, the second core responsibility is researching and proposing ethical guidelines for the committee's long-term operations as a standing committee.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because there is a chance that we speak with legal counsel, we talk to other school districts, and we just find that there isn't viable infrastructure for this committee to be a standing committee. But obviously we want to do that research first.
Yeah, good. Okay.
The board's attorney's working on the research now.
Perfect.
But you couldn't do it.
Yeah,
It's
right.
Just looking at putting the guardrails in place.
That's just the logic of going ad hoc versus fully going for a
Right.
Yeah,
standing
got
committee
it.
right now.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
I have a question. This notion of being a partner or shipping with these different aspects of the government, does that also include things like pushing our own agenda? In other words, having some concerns or some ideas of changing laws that we want to get done?
Well, that's
part of it, right?
And that's
Well,
kind of
that's the whole point of creating the ad hoc, is to find out the boundaries of which we can
What we can in
we
fact,
can and cannot.
push.
And
push.
honestly, some of it would be going through the administration rather than us representing that role, because there's some clear boundaries of which we can
sure,
operate.
yeah.
So, in order to not stand inside of hesitation and do nothing, my recommendation, and which I supported, I just elevated you to
You're giving
doctor.
that quite
Mr. Kapadia's recommendation is to, if we do the ad hoc, we can do the legwork in the process of having dialogues.
To get a sense of what is possible and
What is possible, right? Because our first blush was, nobody does this. This is, okay, well, that doesn't mean we can't.
Yeah.
So more work needs to be done to pursue what's
thank you.
possible.
And I do also just want to say, one of the real drivers for me personally on moving forward with this committee is pushing our administration to lobby our state legislators, because as we've seen, there are other districts that are also, from affluent towns that are able to work with their electeds in the legislature to get additional money. And, we just spent, an hour talking about the potential cuts we're going to have to make. And, there are line items annually in the state budget that come out in June that are in the tune to $250,000 to $750,000 that goes to individual districts for capital improvements, for extracurricular activities for students. So it's just another avenue for us to explore potentially securing additional revenue.
And the whole notion of lobbying is I mean, that's empowering ourselves and possibly our students.
Good for you, Mike.
Is there any sense of any other districts that are involved in this? I mean, it'd be nice to have compatriots.
We don't know that.
Don't
So
know that.
far, initial
That'd be part of the ad
legwork
hoc
says, yeah.
process.
So far, initial conversation is probably not.
Probably not.
But things are happening. So we'll figure it out. We'll
And
figure
the
out
leadership
our
team
version.
does a lot. We do petition and work with our government, but we do it through our associations. Like as the superintendents, we had all of the folks coming to our meetings and roundtables. We go to their meetings. They have, all of us have done that. So we do it also, but it wouldn't hurt. It's just more voices, I think, would be very, and I find that board members and parent voices are louder than ours. So that does help.
Anything else? All right.
Just
Well,
wanted to quickly, are we voting on this?
getting ready.
Okay, so I just wanted to quickly note that I'm going to be abstaining on this, but I want folks to understand why, because it has nothing to do with how valuable I think this is. But I think some of the language in here is around advocating to state government leaders for state funding. And as folks might know, I'm in a state government position in an agency that provides services and resources to public school districts. So our legal counsel has advised me not to participate in this because there's a potential conflict of interest.
So you're really recusing yourself from the vote rather than abstaining.
Either is fine.
She will abstain. She withhold her vote. Okay. With that, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to request a first and second to move that the resolution be passed.
Motion.
Okay.
Dr. Lilliston,
Abstain.
Mr. Peters,
Strong yes.
Dr. Resnick,
Yep.
Mr. Slotman, Dr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Capadia,
Yes.
and Ms. Williams-Galliano.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. With that, we're going to move into our second and final public comment. And the members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by the district administration. Public comment is now open.
Sylvia Costas, 7 Wydell Drive, Pennington, New Jersey. 3 minutes is never enough. I accept your 5756 ruling. I'm just trying to clarify what I requested in September. Sociologists explain that the trend to change terminology relating to the words sex, male, and female began about 10 years ago. Society now expects to be insulated from emotional discomfort and offense. For example, the term larger body replaced plus size, which replaced overweight. Jonathan Haidt calls this safetyism. For most of the 20th century, the word safety meant physical safety, like the use of seatbelts or smoke alarms. But now safety means emotional safety. We should not have to experience negative emotions from the term biological sex because it offends us. Using euphemisms softens to what some students might seem like an unkind biological reality. We're told that we need to learn to be comfortable with words like chest feeders and uterus holders or birthing bodies as a proper way to define a female by my body parts. Men, do you call your wives and your daughters that at home? Defending human rights is praiseworthy, but this strategy is misguided. Protecting people from discrimination and harassment does not require pretending that sex is merely assigned or that understanding of sex needs to be deconstructed. The categories male and female matter for health, for safety, for social policy. Terminology should be as clear as possible because a shared language is the starting point for mutual understanding and democratic deliberation. Imagine the fiscal confusion if Mr. Colavito was told there is no straight read of terms like debit or journal entry or accrued interest. It's never justified to misrepresent the facts in the service of a social or political cause. When medical organizations distort the scientific facts, it undermines not only their credibility, but that of science in general. How can the public be expected to trust their declarations on other controversial issues? We saw that with COVID. Has this board considered that your agreement with this distortion of facts could undermine your credibility and your trustworthiness on other issues. Things like referendums, like demographic projections, like the impact of pilot deals on taxpayers, or the curriculum that's taught in our comprehensive sex education classes.
I've been going back and forth in my head about whether to say anything about the budget cuts that we will all talk about in the coming months. I don't want to put anything on your radar.
Could I just ask you to state your name? Sorry.
I'm sorry. Suze Polinsky. I live in Hopewell Township.
Thank you.
One of the things that was up in the last couple of years when we talked about cuts was teaming at the middle school. And before I had a middle school, I didn't really know what teaming was.
Can you pull the mic towards you, Suze?
These new mics not working for me.
There
Sorry.
you go. There you
Okay.
go. Mm-hmm.
I'm in.
Picking you up now.
I encourage folks who don't have a middle schooler or who don't think about middle school to look into what teaming means. The concept, everybody understands what happens in our small elementary schools where your kids have a small building and a small class and teachers who know them. Many parents express fears about the big scary middle school and that transition for their kids when it comes time. But Timberlane is not a big scary middle school. Timberlane is a place where really concerted efforts have been made to break down groups of 300 kids, the grade of 300 kids, into really thoughtful units where there are teachers that know them all well. So I will do a poorer job explaining this than folks who know it better than me. But your child is assigned to a team, and that team has the 4 core teachers, language arts, history, science, and math. And those, whatever cohort of kids are on that team, are known by the same 4 teachers. So your kid may not be known well by the history teacher, but if they're known well by the language arts teacher, those 4 teachers sit down frequently and talk about who's not on somebody's radar, who doesn't look good, who are we watching, who needs help. And in a building with 300 kids in a class, that's a really big service. And for all you parents who say, I'm worried about going to the big scary middle school, and I'm worried that no one will have eyes on my kid, and I'm worried about my kid being on a bus with high schoolers, this is the thing that makes it not that. And I've watched it with both my kiddos, and as I said, I hesitate to put this on your radar because I know you're making your list of things that you're gonna think about, but I hope parents will spend the next month or 2 learning about how that makes it a very different building and a very different experience. Folks know I'm passionate about digital wellness and tech issues. The middle school is thinking hard about this, and it's things like teaming that allow you to break this down. We're talking about mental health for our kids. We're talking about the things that put them at risk, and having adults in that building who know you're slowly developing, becoming more independent kiddos is what keeps them safer. So please, folks out there, not a lot of folks in the room, think hard about protecting teaming at the middle school. And I hope this group will do that. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Kostis, again, thank you for clarifying your position. And I know that we'll be having more discussions in the future about it, so I appreciate that. Dr. Polinsky, I also value teaming, and I know the importance of teaming at the middle school. It does create that small school within a school environment where teachers are able to collaborate within content areas, and also they have the most sustainable amount of professional development time to talk with each other across content areas and within the content because of the teaming structure. However, it is expensive. It is a priority for me to try to keep it as long as we can, because I was in a district before I came here, where that was one of the first things on the chopping blocks, and it increased the number of discipline problems in the school. It really changed the climate of the middle school. It really it devastated the program, and that's the first place they went. So that is not certainly the first place I'm going, if I could help it. But it is costly, so we're going to have to figure out where other places we can, and I'm going to try to preserve it as long as I can.
Any questions or comments from the board on Okay. Seeing none, public comments now closed. And we are going to go ahead and move into executive session where we will be talking about HIB matters as well as 2 personnel matters and a individual student matter. There will be no actions taken. So thank you all. Have a wonderful winter break.
Hold on.
Oh.
The student.
Oh, okay. I understand there is a student action that will be taken. Thank you. Have a safe winter break.